Text Expander from Smile is supporting this edition of MacVoices. Text Expander can help you be more productive in every single application on your Mac. Find out how at textexpander.com. Welcome to MacVoices. This is the talk of the Apple community, and I'm Chuck Joyner. Folks, once again, at least as we record this, we're looking forward to the release of iOS 14 and Big Sur, macOS Big Sur. And that means that it's time to talk to Joe Kissell about a new edition of a Take Control book, or I guess a new Take Control book technically, since it's a new OS, Take Control of Big Sur. Folks, Mr. Joe Kissell. Joe,
hello.
Welcome.
Nice to be here as always.
Hey, it's always a pleasure. And I kind of got confused there in that intro because I guess this is a new book since it is a brand new OS.
Yeah. This is actually an interesting terminological question that we struggle with, with authors and with customers all the time, because what often happens is we will have a book. Last year we had Take Control of Catalina. That was the title of the book. Now it turns out that a lot of the content from Take Control of Catalina was derived from its predecessor, Take Control of Mojave. So Shelley McFarland, who wrote both of those books, sort of said, well, we'll start with this. Now we'll rip out some stuff, we'll add some new stuff, we'll make some edits, and then we have a book with a new title. So normally, if you do that to a book, it turns into a new edition. We had, Take Control of iCloud, first edition, second edition, third edition, and so on. So normally that's what happens. When you're talking about a product whose name is, like, we don't have a book called Take Control of macOS. So we want it to be easier to find, clear exactly which version of macOS are we talking about here. So and a book that tried to cover them all would be like enormously huge. So from a certain point of view, normally when we do these revs, it looks like a new edition, but it really has a new name. So as far as it's technically a new book. However, we didn't do that this year. This year, threw out all the old material and well, with an asterisk. we basically started from scratch. So this book has not one word in it from Take Control of Catalina. However, it does borrow rather heavily from Take Control of Upgrading to Catalina. So as many of you know, since 2003, the very first Take Control book, Take Control of Upgrading to Panther, and every time Apple has released a new version of macOS since then, we've had Take Control of Upgrading to whatever, Tiger and Mountain Lion and Mavericks and all those. This is the first year since 2003 that we are not having a separate Take Control of Upgrading to Big Sur. What we have instead decided to do is have just one book instead of like the upgrading and then all about the operating system. We're just going to have one book. Take Control of Big Sur, and it includes upgrading instructions. So I took the instructions that I gave for Catalina, and I trimmed them way, 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 way down to about a third of their previous length, while keeping their essence. And then I updated those to be accurate for Big Sur. So this is from a certain point of view, two books in one, but it's really it's basically a new from scratch kind of thing with that asterisk.
So if I remember correctly, Catalina was it Catalina? I think it was Catalina was the transition to the new file system. Or do I have that wrong?
It happened in stages. So High Sierra was the first version of macOS that had some support for APFS, and then, if I remember correctly, I think it was High Sierra because I get lost too. And then Mojave added more, and Catalina added more. I think Mojave was the first one that actually. That actually changed the format of your boot drive when you installed the operating system, and then Catalina added hybrid drives, fusion drives, and mechanical drives to that list, if I remember correctly. Which honestly, that's something I would have to look up. But anyway, But it has been a phased transition, and in fact, in Big Sur, we have gone another couple of steps, which we can talk about in a bit. But yeah, it has been a process, and it hasn't been an entirely smooth one.
Well, and that's exactly why I was asking, because the question could have been, does that mean that we really need to no longer worry too much about upgrading, that it's pretty much a snap? And that's where I was going with the file system thing, that, there were some reasons before that you really had to be not careful, but you had to pay a little bit of attention and use a little extra care. Now, is this another one of those that we have where something at that level could turn around and bite us, or are we pretty much past that transition and now just strictly into APFS?
There's always something that can bite you.
Oh, good. Thank you.
Always. I would not say we're out of the woods. I would say every time there are improvements, some things get better and easier, and there are also more dangers. This is like every version that came before it in that respect. So I'll just mention a few here off the top of my head. We've talked in previous years about the fact that APFS was designed for SSDs. If you have solid state storage in your Mac, fantastic. APFS is exactly what you should be using. It will make everything faster and safer and more reliable and better. APFS does not play well with mechanical hard drives. And with Fusion drives, it's okay-ish, but still not great. So if you have a Mac that is compatible with Big Sur, but it's still using the old, HFS Plus macOS extended file system, and it's still, it has a mechanical hard drive, not a hybrid, not an SSD. And you're thinking, well, I've skipped a couple of versions of macOS, but now it's finally time. I would say no, don't do it. I would say stick with what you've got unless you are prepared to swap out your mechanical hard drive for an SSD. If you are, great, you'll have a good experience on Big Sur. But for those people who are still using Macs that have mechanical hard drives, the upgrade to Big Sur is not going to be a pleasant one. So that's one thing. A second thing is in Catalina, and again, Apple has changed so many different things at so many different times that I believe this is an accurate statement. Apple did this security thing where they split your startup volume into like Macintosh HD and Macintosh HD data. And you never really see that extra data volume in the Finder. You'd have to go into Disk Utility or the terminal or something to see it. As far as you're concerned as a user, it looks like there's only one volume. It still looks like it's just Macintosh HD. But behind the scenes, there's a read-only system volume that has all the guts of macOS on it. And then there's a separate volume that has all the stuff that you put on it, all of the apps that you install and all of your files and all that kind of stuff. And the idea is that malware and hackers can't touch the core of macOS. The worst they can do is mess up your own files, but you're still going to be able to boot. They're not going to be able to damage macOS itself. So that was a security feature, and it had some consequences, but it wasn't too bad. Now, they've gone a second step in Big Sur to cryptographically sign this extra volume, this one that just holds macOS itself. That makes it even harder for some other software to change it, because that would be basically, if any change happens, it would break that cryptographic signature, and your Mac would just say, no, I'm not going to boot off of this corrupted volume. So that's nice, except it causes problems with cloning software like SuperDuper and Carbon Copy Cloner, anything that you would use to make a bootable duplicate of your Mac. Now, I've recommended this for years and years and years. It's a really important thing. It's a really valuable thing to be able to do. You can use a tool like that to make a duplicate in Big Sur, but at least as of the current beta version, as of the time we are talking about this, that duplicate that you would make with one of these tools would not be bootable because the cryptographic signatures wouldn't match. This is a good thing. It's a security feature, except it prevents you from making a bootable duplicate. There is a workaround in that you can copy just your data and then you separately install macOS onto that backup drive. Once you have manually gone through running the installer, then it becomes bootable. But if you're using a cloning utility, it won't be initially. The manufacturers, the developers of tools like Carbon Copy Cloner and SuperDuper are saying, we're working on that. It's like something that Apple has to do some stuff, and then they have to do some stuff. So there is reason for optimism that before Big Sur finally ships, or maybe shortly thereafter, Apple and these developers will come up with a way that stops being a problem. For now, though, you're going to have to jump through some extra hoops to get a bootable duplicate. And briefly, a third thing that is new with APFS and Big Sur is that if you use Time Machine, the disk that you store your Time Machine backups on can now be formatted as APFS. That's nice. Before, it could only be formatted as HFS+. The problem is now you can't use that drive to also back up Macs using older versions of macOS. It would have to be restricted to Big Sur. And I will mention as well, if that backup drive is a mechanical hard drive, as it almost always will be, it's going to be kind of slow. So if you are fortunate enough to have, some of these things, external SSDs in reasonable capacities with, USB 3, 3 point whatever, USB-C connectors or Thunderbolt, you can use one of those as your backup drive. Great, it'll be plenty fast. If not, backups and restores could be a little less pleasant than they have been in the past.
Okay, so remind me to come back to number 2 on your list, but let's do number 3 since we're right here. So okay. I have a Time Machine drive.
Yeah.
Let's start with that. I have a Time Machine drive. Now it will, and it's dedicated to, let's just say, this iMac that's in front of me. Okay, so am I required to? Does it automatically, or does it make a difference if can I convert that to APFS and not lose my my existing Time Machine backups? Might be the best way to ask it.
So you can't, it does not automatically convert, and you are not required to use APFS, at least not today. Maybe that will change in the future. If you are starting a new Time Machine backup from scratch, brand new drive, plug it in, it's empty. Oh, let's use this drive for Time Machine. In that situation, Apple will reformat that drive as APFS. You can reformat a drive as from HFS Plus to APFS. I have not tried doing that with Time Machine in the Big Sur betas, and I strongly suspect that it won't work. And the reason I suspect it won't work is that it isn't just that the underlying format has changed, it's that the way Time Machine stores data is different. So it's not simply a matter of let's change the, I can't think of a good my son and I are watching this car restoration show on Netflix, and it's like, okay, well, you got to take the frame, take the body off of this one and put a new frame from another. Like, I'm trying to, but I can't quite make it work. Anyway, sorry. So it's not simply like you're putting the exact same data in a different container. You're really storing the data differently. So if I have a couple of spare days with nothing to do and I'm feeling not terribly risk averse, I might give it a try. But really, I think that you probably shouldn't do that. I think there's no benefit to you of doing that. For now, it's really only something I would do if I were starting a new Time Machine backup from scratch.
This edition of MacVoices is supported by Smile, the makers of Text Expander. There's no one who uses a Mac, iPhone, or iPad that doesn't repeatedly enter text of one kind or another. Not only is it boring, but it also wastes time and is prone to mistakes. Text Expander from Smile solves that problem so that you aren't bored, are more productive, and are always accurate. Just a few keystrokes can expand to those things that we all type over and over and over: our email address, our mailing address, our phone numbers, or something more elaborate: a designated response to a customer inquiry, directions to home or office, or a standard clause in a business contract. Even better, you can share your snippets — that's Text Expander speak for those short abbreviations you create that expand into characters, words, or paragraphs — across devices and across platforms, since there are versions of Text Expander for virtually any platform you use. Up your productivity game with my most frequently used utility, Text Expander from Smile, the makers of world-class software, at smilesoftware.com/podcast. That's smilesoftware.com/podcast. Thanks to Smile for being the longest-running sponsor of MacVoices. Sort of along those lines, and this is probably something you haven't had a chance, but what's your gut level feeling on a network attached storage that has a share or a partition, or whatever the proper term is for that particular device, that is acting as your time machine backup drive? Just leave it alone and let it do its thing?
I would definitely leave it alone. I would have to plead ignorance. I am not aware of NAS devices that are able to use APFS as their file system. There might be some that I'm just unaware of, but I am not aware of any. There are certainly some that can format as HFS plus and various other file systems. What I believe happens on network devices is that you'll have the disk itself is formatted as whatever, and then when you start using Time Machine on it, Time Machine will create a disk image. And when the disk image is mounted, that mounted image will be formatted as a APFS or whatever as let me correct that, as whatever Time Machine prefers or needs. But the underlying, it's like an APFS disk image that is sitting on something else, sitting on a drive that is formatted in some other way. So it could certainly be possible to format those disk images as APFS, but honestly, if what you have is working right now, I would not mess with it. I see no benefit to that at all, but I see a potential for great pain.
Okay. All right, so let's go back to number 3 on that list. And I realize we're spending a lot of time here in the upgrading part, but that number 3 that you mentioned really took a big bite out of my leg, because that concerns me. I think I'm correct in this, that in Catalina, there's a way for me to go in and turn off the inability to boot from an external drive. And
Yes.
So is that something that we could do as a workaround with big? So no, you can't do that.
You are correct that you have to go in and change an obscure setting to be able to boot from any external device. That is true in Catalina. It continues to be true in Big Sur. It's not a big deal. You can easily read it in one of my books or Google it or whatever. It's not hard to be able to start up from an external drive. It's just an extra step you got to do. However, that external drive that you're starting up from has to be a valid boot drive. And if you make a straight clone of, let us say, Big Sur Beta 6 onto an external drive, the files will probably be there, but it will refuse to boot because the signature won't match. So, and I should say too, you work around this by getting out your Big Sur installer, you run it, you choose that external drive as the destination, let it go through its process. It'll take a while. It's not going to touch your data. It's not going to touch the data that you have already backed up to it, but it's going to add a bootable system to it. So that works. And now after this extra step, you do have a bootable duplicate that looks just like your internal storage, and it has all your data and it's bootable, but as soon as you install an update to macOS, it's the next beta of Big Sur, or it's it's macOS 11.0.1 or whatever it turns out to be, then that your cloning utility like Carbon Copy Cloner can't update the duplicate because, again, that would break. And as I said, I hope this gets resolved before everything finally ships. That this is just the state as of early September. But you would then have to download the installer for that new version of macOS, run it again, choosing your bootable duplicate as the destination, and you'd have to repeat that every time. Or you can start up from the bootable duplicate. So now you're running off of that, and then just use software update. I hesitate to recommend that because if your bootable duplicate is a mechanical hard drive and you're trying to boot off of it and then do a software update, I mean, it's going to be so slow. It's going to be really, really slow. It's going to be painful, but you can do it that way.
So at some point we may start having to rethink, I should say, our backup strategy once this happens. And I mean, there's a certain amount of comfort, I guess, in the idea that if I'm running Big Sur, and by the way, let's reiterate the fact too that we're recording this before the actual release version, right. So this may change, but just in case it doesn't. So if I clone using Carbon Copy Cloner my Big Sur installation, it won't boot, but that doesn't mean that the data is not safe. The data is there.
Yes, your data is still safe, or your data are still safe, depending on how you roll. But you just won't be able to boot from it without additional steps. Now, you mentioned maybe we have to rethink our backup strategies. And it's interesting that you should say that, because guess what the next book on my list to update is? It's
but for good reason.
Backing up your Mac. So the next time we talk, it's going to be about the new edition of Take Control of Backing Up Your Mac that I'm working on now. And boy, oh boy, is that going to be a big update, because I have, for years, I have given essentially the same core advice. The details have changed, but the essence of the strategy that I recommend has been the same. Now I'm rethinking the strategy. Because of the weird boot thing, because of the differences in APFS, because of not only the performance, but the way Time Machine works and the bootable duplicates, because of changes in cloud storage, and because of, as we've talked about briefly, and you've talked about with Jeff Carlson, the way APFS snapshots work, which give you a sort of kind of little bit of an extra backup without any extra work. All of these things are making me rethink stuff. So I will say a lot more about that the next time we talk, but backups are going to need some rethinking a bit.
I'm looking forward to that. And obviously that's not going to happen. The update to the book and all, and the finalization of the strategy won't happen until after Big Sur is actually out and we see what some of this is doing.
We'll see.
Oh boy. Okay.
Well, first of all, depending on when you when you watch this, there is an Apple event on September 15th. We don't know if Apple will be announcing the ship date of Big Sur at that event. It could happen. I don't think it's going to ship then, but we might find out when it's going to ship. There are some people saying we think it's going to come out before the end of September. Other people saying no, mid-October at the earliest. And of course, we don't know what will change between early September and whenever that date is. So we'll see. We'll see.
So I know my gut reaction, and then we'll leave this and move on to actual Big Sur, but my gut reaction is this may cause me not to install Big Sur on day 1, or for that matter, day 10, until I have a complete understanding of this, because I rely on that concept of the bootable backup drive a lot for a lot of reasons, not the least of which is just to keep me out of trouble in general. And so if I were to lose that, I want to make sure I understand what I'm doing. And this is not, I don't hear this as a bad thing, Joe. It's maybe a little complicated, but I hear it as just one more doubling down on privacy and security that Apple does. And we've said it a million times here that the doubling down on privacy and security is inconvenient at best.
Well, let me begin by saying, Chuck, you're going to need more than a bootable duplicate to keep you out of trouble. But
thank you very much.
But when Catalina came out, of course, I wrote Take Control of upgrading to Catalina, and I had Catalina installed in a few different ways on a couple different machines. I didn't upgrade my main machines to Catalina for like 5 or 6 months, something like that. That was a painful upgrade for me, and that had its own reasons. That was largely about, partly about bugs. There were some serious bugs at the beginning. Also partly about the fact that I still needed to use some software that was 32-bit and I couldn't update to actually run in Catalina. So there was a whole process there. This time around, I have a feeling I might delay again, but not because of anything we've talked about. I feel confident that I will be able to rejigger my backup strategy so that my data is still safe, or my data are still safe, and I still feel confident and comfortable. There are other things about Big Sur that I don't know. And that I just want to say, like, there's no shame in that. If you're one of those people who, like me, always installs the new thing immediately, and I got to have the hot new stuff, and like we're not going to give you any geek demerits because you didn't install this on day one. It's okay. You got to get your stuff done. You gotta have a functioning computer to do what you need to do, and if it's not safe or convenient or whatever for you to continue to use the new system immediately, that's okay. It's all right to wait. Sooner or later, there might come a time when it's still not really safe, but conditions are such that you got to take the plunge. That's part of what I'm trying to help through with this book is, point out things you might want to think about before jumping in, but it's okay. It's okay to wait. It's not a problem. Catalina is going to keep working as it has been for a long time. If you need to wait a month or 6 months, it's okay.
We'll be back with Joe Kissell in the next edition of MacVoices to talk more about his Take Control of Big Sur. We'll get away from the installation and some of the challenges that face us with Big Sur and get a little more into the productivity aspects of the new macOS and what you can expect to see, what's different, the appearances that are different, and some of the things that you need to know to get the most out of Big Sur. That's next time on MacVoices. Until then, I'm Chuck Joyner. Thanks for watching. Visit MacVoices.com for show notes and to connect with Chuck on social media. Get involved in our Facebook group or like our Facebook page, and get more out of your Apple tech with MacVoices Magazine, free on Flipboard and on the web. And if you find value in it all, consider supporting us through either our Patreon campaign at patreon.com/MacVoices or by making a one-time donation via the PayPal link on our front page and in the show notes of each episode. You will join these fine people who help bring you MacVoices. Advertising handled by Backbeat Media at backbeatmedia.com. Bandwidth provided by CacheFly at cachefly.com.